What's going on? It's your boy back at you again with another issue of Tommy Reed's X-Men. Today, we are looking at X-Men number 21 from June 1964, written by Roy Thomas again, with art by Jay Gavin. This one's called From Whence Comes Dominus. I have no idea what Dominus is, but it sounds cool, right? So let's kick it right off with beginning how we ended the last issue. The X-Men are a jet, what I'm calling the Blackbird 1.0. It's probably got a different name. But they're in the jet, heading to take on Lucifer. Excuse me, got tongue-tied. And they get knocked. The plane almost gets brought down by a giant beam in the sky. Now, if you've seen any superhero movie ever, the giant beam in the sky is always the end game for the aliens, right? They shoot that beam in. Apparently, it's like a call to the other aliens. Anyway, Lucifer shoots his giant beam in the sky, and it almost takes out the X-Men, but they recover. And then for some reason, I don't know why. We'll get to the deeper explanation in a second, but let me just set this up. For some reason, a bunch of cowboys see this giant beam in the sky, and they're like, you know what? Actually, let me throw on an accent. You know what, partner? Let's go explore this. That was awful. If you're a cowboy, I'm sorry. Anyway, so the cowboys go to explore it, and then the X-Men, for some reason, they leave the plane hovering, and they get into this, like, kind of giant red sleigh, is the best way I can describe it. It's giant, it's bright red, totally obvious. Like, if they're trying to be inconspicuous and sneak up on Lucifer, this ain't the way to do it. This is not the way to do it. But they go, and they calling it a go buggy. And it kind of reminds me of, like, the Fantastic Four's, like, Fantastic car. I think that's what it's called. I'm not the biggest Fantastic Four fan. I just like the thing. And, yeah, so they call it a go buggy. And then it takes a while for them to get down to, where the mountain lair that Lucifer has in this desert. So, they start chit-chatting, and right away Papa Chuck's like, shh! Shut it up! Shut up! Everyone, like, why do you need to be quiet? He already knows we're coming. There's a giant floating, hovering jet in the sky, and we're in a bright red car. Like, why are you shushing us, man? Can't we talk? It's been 45 minutes, this descent. Meanwhile, Jean is more concerned with what Scott's doing. She's like, oh, he's talking to everyone but me. And, like, she's so concerned with what Scott's doing that she's totally head out the mission. She is not paying attention. So the X-Men land, and Papa Chuck's like, all right, well, good luck. I'll see ya. And he's like, I can't get down this mountain, I'm in the wheelchair. I'm just going to chill here and assume you guys are doing all right. I'll probably check in every, 15 minutes, but I got my Sudoku, so I'm all good. And why did he even come? Why did he even come if he's not going to go on with the mission? And he's the one who has the gripe with Lucifer, right? They're fighting his battle. So it's a little odd that he would be just like, well, good luck. I think you got it. No, that look of concern? No, I was thinking about something else. You guys got it, totally. So the X-Men start descending down the mountain, and we didn't forget about the Cowboys, did we? Because the Cowboys show up, and they start fighting the X-Men, and they pull guns on them and shit. Oh, excuse me. Nah, I'm going to keep going. You know what? I was going to stop it and edit, but I'm going to keep going. So they pull guns on them and stuff. That's the first swear word in these videos, I think. So they pull guns on them, and then the X-Men are like, who are these guys bugging us? Like, what are they? They're not Lucifer's henchmen, because, he could probably hire better people than this. But Jean takes the guy who has the gun. He's the main guy. And instead of just knocking the gun out of his hand with her power, she ends up just tilting his hat back so he can, you know what? She ends up tilting his hat back like he's like, oh, I can't see, oh my gosh. And then, instead of just knocking the gun out of his hand, why not use your power for that, Jean? God, her head is not in this mission. She is so caught up with, like, what Scott's going on that she's totally head out the game. It could get somebody killed. So Cyclops decides, you know what, forget this. We don't have no time for this mess. So he optic blasts the ground, and the Cowboys fall into the river below. And then they're like, you know what? This ain't worth it. This ain't it. I don't even know why I'm here. Except for the main guy who like tries to shoot Iceman. Iceman gets him first, and then he kind of locks him in like an ice block, like ties him up with, instead of rope, it's ice, and sends him on his way. Then, the next panel, the writer says, now after that time-consuming interlude in the little box above the panel, so he knew this was filler, because that's what it felt like. It felt totally like filler, like, you know what, Roy Thomas, Gavin, we're like 2 pages short, so what are you gonna do? He's like, Cowboys mixing it up with the X-Men. People love cowboys, right? And I assume, Back to the Future 3. Anyway, so the cowboy thing was pointless because they didn't come out again for the rest of the thing. It was just 2 pages of just, hey, let's throw in X-Men versus Cowboys for no reason. So in the meantime, while the X-Men are busying themselves with this light work, Charles gets kidnapped by robots, which they just show up and they're like, we got him. And then they deliver him to Lucifer, and he decides to launch into like, now, Charles, we got... And he starts just trash-talking him like, I got you now. It ain't Tibet again, son, because I'm about to wreck you. And he's like, and which is making him madder. So then the X-Men... Iceman builds a raft, so they decide to, just sail on down this river into the cave or wherever, or the lair that Lucifer's got. So Iceman builds a raft out of ice, which would melt, quit, I guess. Whatever. I don't know. I've never built an ice raft before. Yet. So Iceman builds a raft, and they decide to go in, and quickly, easily, they are taken out by Lucifer builds a whirlpool somehow, and the X-Men get knocked into the water. Quickly, they are taken captive, and before they do, Iceman tries to free himself by building an ice surfboard. And because of this, and because of his general ice look, he hella looks like the Silver Surfer. And I did my research this time. The Silver Surfer had debuted 3 months beforehand in, 1964 or whatever. And I'm wondering if they did that so when people saw the Silver Surfer on the stands, they're like, oh, Iceman's got a series. Maybe it's just coincidence. Maybe, Jay Gavin and homies were working on the Silver Surfer. I don't know. Anyway, he looked just like the Silver Surfer to me. So the X-Men get kidnapped. They get thrown into a big cube. It looked like a cube of clear jello, like a gelatinous cube, like Xantar from Noah's Arcade. Shout out Wayne's World. Anyway, they get thrown in a big cube, and Iceman and Beast come up later. They get thrown in the cube. Now, Lucifer, we cut back to him, and he is still talking to Charles, like, just monologuing. And then he casually mentions in talking, like, my alien race, and he admits he's an alien. Now, Charles is like, in his mind, the bloop, 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 the mind bubble, he's like, just as I suspected. Come on, Papa Chuck. Come on. You ain't got to lie. You ain't got to lie, Papa Chuck. Don't act like you suspected this the whole time. Because before you kept referring to Lucifer as this dude who he's got beef with, and the X-Men need to help him handle it, and, the whole thing in Tibet, every time Lucifer's mentioned, you never once mentioned that he was an alien, so don't try to lie and say that you knew the whole time. But that's what he does, and then Lucifer, since he's a classic monologue, a classic villain, he starts talking about his plan, and he mentions Dominus. What's Dominus? Is it an unstoppable force? Is it an immovable object? Dominus is just a machine. Just a machine that hypnotizes people to do the will and the bidding of the supreme leader. The supreme leader. Boring. It could have been this cool villain who was working for him, and the supreme leader is like Lucifer's boss. And what it does, it just kind of hypnotizes people to the dude's bidding. Exciting. So the X-Men free themselves from the Xantar cube. And the beauty part about Xantar is you can't get to this X level in the game. Anyway, that's aside. Second shout out for Wayne's World. Go watch Wayne's World. Underrated movie. So the X-Men free themselves, and they finally catch up to Lucifer and Papa Chuck, who are really just standing there talking to each other. Lucifer sees him, he's like, "Oh!" And then they're about to destroy Dominus when Charles realizes that's what Lucifer wants, because if he destroys the machine, they kind of yada yada, like it won't work to their benefit. And at first, Angel doesn't listen, and Cyclops has to actually blast him with his beams to stun him. So it's X-Men versus X-Men for a second, like 2 panels, and then Angel was disobeying orders. Like Papa Chuck told him don't do it, and he's like, I'm gonna do it anyway. So Cyclops is a Charles man through and through. So he's like, boom, optic blast. And everybody's like, whoa, what happened there? Nobody has ever addressed Scott trying to quit the team, last issue. He was just like, oh, psych from psych. And he's like, they didn't address it at all. It never came up. So the X-Men end up fighting some random robots. And, they fight some robots. And then Lucifer gets this... You know what? Let's just take a closer look at it real quick. Why not? All right, so this is the second to last page of the issue, and a whole bunch of nonsense has happened. Then Lucifer gets a call from the Supreme One, who's like, you know what? We shutting this down. You ain't doing nothing here. Then we best move on. And you move on to future endeavors, pretty much. He's like firing him / punishing him. And he's like, oh, X-Men, please help me. I'm being disappeared. And then the X-Men are like, well, that happened. That was a thing that happened for 2 issues. And we out on our giant red, not inconspicuous sleigh. And we out. So, 2 pages that summed up the whole thing. And, yeah, it was not the greatest of reads. Let's go to the final thoughts. Yeah. So, 2 issues. I'm going to get up close so we can talk. 2 issues of nonsense. Where are Blob and Eunice? They were handling stuff on the streets. Are they still robbing people? Are they out here still dressing up like the X-Men? We don't know. Dominus sounded cool, but it's like a machine. And then in the end, he's just like, you know what? I'm going to get rid of you, Lucifer. You ain't getting the job done, and I'm going to take Dominus, just leave Earth with it. In the final 5 panels. 2 issues. 2 issues. And we sum it up in the final 5 panels. And then, you can pause it in the closer look and see. The X-Men get the win, but Charles totally takes credit for it. He's like, yep, this all happened like I wanted. For reals? You expected them to get kidnapped, and then all this to happen. Granted, you kept homie talking, but anyway. Final thoughts. This was better than last week's issue. That was a 3 out of 10. This one's a 5 out of 10. So X-Men 21, 5 out of 10. The action was okay. Just the story was boring as hell to me, man. I couldn't dig it. I couldn't get into it. There's got to be better stories to tell. I know and I assume, but the action was, like I said, it was all right. It's better than last issue, but the storyline was boring. There's a whole lot of nothing, and then they just quickly wrapped it up. There was no continuity problems like last issue, but there was filler in here. All of a sudden they're fighting cowboys, and just man, not the business. So far to me, Roy Thomas is not doing great. I know he's famous as hell, but I know he writes X-Men to X-Men number 40, so we in this for a while. It's got to get better, right? It's got to get better. We'll see. Anywho, this has been Tommy Reads X-Men. Thank you for watching like always. I appreciate your likes. I appreciate your comments. Please, if this is your first time watching, like and subscribe down here. If you've been watching for a while, every like will help get the word out about the channel, the algorithms, all that. Hit the notification button in the corners. I think they're down there somewhere. And yeah, I appreciate all the love you guys showing me. Continue to do so. Like I said, Helping get the word out about the channel is invaluable to me. I appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Hopefully a better issue.